Welcome to Quit to Win, the show where we explore the moments people had to let go of destructive pattern, limiting identity, and the internal battle in order to rebuild their life with purpose and clarity. Our today's guest is Mark Cook, CEO, leadership strategy, and founder of Bold Encounter, a platform and podcast helping people move from career confusion to clear life work. With decades of experience as a CEO, advisor to elite leaders, and co-author of the New York Times bestseller book, Great Work. Mark has spent his life studying what separates those who feel stuck at work from those who find meaning, momentum, and mastery in what they do. But his perspective was not just built in theory. It was forged through loss, mentorship, and exposure to some of the most influential leaders in business. From losing his father at a very young age to working alongside billionaire Rio Noda and legendary leadership thinker Steve Covey, Mark's journey has been shaped by questions about purpose, directions, and what it truly means to do life work. Today, he works with our leaders and organizations to help them break out of stagnation, think vision, and design career and companies that actually feel alive again, not just productive. Mark, it's a pleasure to have you on the show.
Thank you so much. I look forward to speaking to you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mark. So, Mark, you lost your father to cancer when you were 15, an experience that clearly shaped your earlier sense of meaning and direction. Take us back to that time. What did that loss do to your understanding of life, work, and identity at such a formative age?
Well, the only reason I'm willing to talk about it to people is not because it still hurts at this point in my life. I'm much older than I was back then. I won't share how much, but a lot. And a lot of people, a third of people in the U.S. I don't know what the world statistics are. My suspicion is that they're worse, but a third of the people in the U.S. grow up without a parent, and it is a very difficult situation statistically. When
Yeah.
you're going through it, it's very personal. I had a great father, but at 13, he had cancer. The next 2 years, I didn't see much of his real self, or he was in a hospital, because back then people stayed in hospitals. And he was a big loss to our family. In fact, it happened to come at a time when my brother, that's just older than me, I'm the baby of the family, went away to college, and my sister got married a couple months later. And also, my mom had to go work full time and really put in some other service. And so I kind of lost more than just my dad. I went from a fun family household of five with decent finances, not great, but decent finances. And then I suddenly was basically alone and alone at home, sloughing school and doing things that I shouldn't. And it was a dark time. And I just didn't know how dark it was. And of course, I didn't realize when I made concrete decisions. Like, I remember one day deciding I will never speak like an adult man. I just had this rejection of it because so many people were telling me what to do at school and other places, and I just did not like that. And my dad wasn't around, my model, my idol from that area of life, and so I just decided not to listen to what adult language sounded like. And yet I was forced to go to work too. So when I went to work, I had to listen to it, but I didn't know how to speak it after a year or two of that attitude. And I began asking people things, not realizing I was in a method yet, because most of the kids didn't ask anyone but their parents. But I just started asking a lot of people everything I could about life, about work, about what's going to make me successful and happy. And I looked where the obvious answers were, and some of my faith and places like that. But I'm still not satiated. I still think that I don't know enough. And that's why I have my own podcast called Bold Encounters. I have bold encounters with people to ask them, how do you feel more fulfilled, and how do you get more successful? So I still am feeling the effects of that early loss, because I really feel that way. I really feel like I just don't know enough still. And I just ask everyone I can talk to about how they do it. And I love doing that. So that's kind of the biggest impact it's had, at least work-wise.
Yeah, that was really a whole lot. And yeah, losing a loved ones is quite very demanding. Let alone losing one's father at a very more like a formative age. Yeah, it's really a whole lot. I'm really sorry.
Yeah, a lot of people have it happen, but if you research the statistics in wherever you are, you'll
Yeah,
find out that it is catastrophic to a career. It is
yeah,
the graduation rate, the idleness rates, the prison rates, and on are dramatically higher for people that are raised with one parent. So it's a very difficult situation that is almost invisible because so many people deal with it, that we should just be able to deal with it.
yeah,
But statistically, it's not. It's a very big event for a life.
yeah, yeah. So you work for influential people after that, figures like Ray O'Neal and Stephen Covey earlier in your journey. What did being that close to high level leadership expose you to that most people never get to see?
Yeah, I got to tell you, I didn't realize this either. I just went to work and. I didn't realize, I would have 12 bosses in my life, and some were really poor bosses that I really did not like working for. Not many. I live in a great community, and I was around really great people. And even those that I didn't like, I think they're great people. But there's about two or three that were just not very good managers of human beings and not great at lifting lives and solving customer problems. And it's shocking to me to think back that I actually did work for both Stephen Coveys. I worked with Stephen Covey Sr. on a magazine that I launched, and we got to get a little closer to him. And then his son, who was the president of the organization, I ended up working for him. And I got to tell you, they are as good as everyone says they are. I have a hard
Mm,
time not worshiping those two gentlemen. They are so great at lifting you in a professional setting and getting you to a place where you're hoping to get, and then teaching you how to help others. They model how to help others in a commercial way, in a personal service way. I just can't believe how fortunate I was to work for those two.
yeah.
The Ray Norda was also an interesting situation. I wasn't technical when I went to work for Ray in one of his companies, and he had professionals around him managing his portfolio. But I'd sneak up in his office and I'd try to listen to him. I'd get in a meeting with him and try to listen to his advice. And he had very interesting advice. He was a very interesting billionaire. He wore cowboy boots. He drove a Dodge average car. He didn't move out of his early married house when he got rich. He stayed there. He loved his neighbors. He wanted to
Yeah.
stay in a humble house. And he was, in some respects, most respects, an incredibly humble, giving person.
Mm,
I was in a meeting once where he gave a substantial amount of money to a philanthropy or a religious set of purposes. And unlike a lot of people, he said, if you put my name on this, I want the money back.
yeah.
I don't want to be associated with this. I want to give this anonymously. And if it's not anonymous, we're not doing this. And
Mm,
in that particular meeting that I remember most, it was $1 million. He's given $1 million. And he said, if you attach my name to this or give me credit or praise me for this, I just want the check back. That was a fascinating lesson to learn. So I learned different lessons from him. And I do think back and I think there's a third person that I didn't work directly for. I worked for his company. He just died, Obert Tanner, and he was an expert leader with leadership books and things. And his culture in some of the respects was still alive. And I worked for a CEO that they hired that I'd worked for in the community. And he was very great at leadership. So I just have been so blessed to work for some of the greatest leaders. And then through trying to start a magazine with Stephen Covey to get to interview some of the greatest successes on earth.
yeah.
Herb Kelleher that started Southwest Airlines, and Jahan Sadat, who freed women in Egypt once upon a time, and Arnold Palmer, the great golf legend, and Larry King, the great media mogul, the interviewer, and just my childhood hero, Walter Payton, the best running back ever to live, I spent the afternoon and evening with him, and I've got to meet some of the greatest successes and leaders ever in that magazine experience. That we'd research them and do articles on them, and
Yeah.
what a place to start
Yeah.
really satiating this professional passion. So
Yeah.
yeah, that was a great experience. I don't mean to drop all the names, but you seemed interested, and I wanted to tell your listeners that sometimes you don't realize what you have until you're decades past it, and then you look back and you go, wow, I was really lucky. Yeah.
Yeah, amazing, amazing. Thank you so much for sharing. So you created our Bold Encounter, a platform
Yeah.
around helping people move from crossroads to calling. What does life work means to you beyond the branding and the language?
Yeah. Yeah. I appreciate that. I'm glad you asked. I didn't write that question, listeners. He wrote it. It's a great question. And that last phrase, beyond the branding, because it sounds like it can't be true. And maybe someone's in an impoverished situation and
Yeah.
they don't want to listen to the idea that they should just focus on money or getting the food. And, there's one of the studies that I was involved with in my career that really gave me permission to believe in this fully. And since then, I've lived it myself and I believe it fully. And here's what the truth is. We studied 2 million people, and most of those people won awards for something. Some of them had their awards rejected. Tens of thousands probably had their award rejected. And then others actually were deemed to be not very good results. And so we got to compare not just with a control group of average work, but the average group in the poor work and the exceptional award-winning work. And what we found was something really interesting right off the bat, meaning the most important. It didn't happen fast. It took years. But right as we were going through the analysis, and I led this analysis, and I led the teams that led this research, and what we found is there is a priority in being successful in your work life. And here it is, stated simply. You have to focus first on creating an exceptional outcome for your ideal client. That's your first priority. Now you can help and serve your secondary client, meaning someone who's not having a need that's exactly how you can fulfill it. And you can have a tertiary level of client, which they want you to do something that you're really not built to do either personally or organizationally. And you can help them with a partner or someone else and do a pretty good job. And then you have these fourth tier. If you're looking at it like a target, the bullseye is the ideal. The secondary is the secondary. The tertiary is the third, of course. And then the fourth ring in leaving the paper. Sometimes they say you shoot off paper if you're in archery. And when you're trying to serve someone who's coming to you and asking for something, they want you to do something that you're just not built to do, and you don't have a partner and you have no way to do it, you probably have to suggest that they go somewhere else. What I'm talking about is the primary ideal client. If you prioritize and become obsessed, not with customer service, but understanding the needs, the problems, the opportunities, the money they need to change, the feelings of that individual decision maker, if that's a consumer. If it's a business, it's your primary decision maker. And then there's a constellation of people around them, those people that are really buying this to use it. And they all have different needs, and they can't even articulate them. If you ask them, they will, but they won't be right most of the time. So you have to study them, which means you have to boldly immerse. One of the things that I teach in my process in my consulting work. And I talk about how to do it, and we don't have time for that today, but you have to study deeply, personally, proximally, in person, all 3D, 4D if you can. You've got to know what those needs really are, and you have to keep doing it because they change and they morph, and people are slightly different even in the ideal bullseye. That's the first priority. The second priority is then you get to worry about their money and your money. You get to worry about your money. And second place is not a bad thing. There are 1,000 urgencies in business. There's 1,000 urgencies in your personal career. Second priority is high. Think of the Olympics. It's the second place winner. It's the silver medal. It's not something to go home ashamed about. So the second place being money and making money, that should satiate most of the people that say, no, I've got to go make money to support my family. Well, the way you make more money is to thrill the people that you're helping, thrill the ideal customer that you serve with deep understanding. So those are the first two. And then the third is really surprising to me, even to me, because I love this topic more than any of them. And the third one is a positive emotion we often call passion. But it includes passion. The original definition of the English word passion actually included sacrifice for others. And so you have to have this incredibly positive emotion to then be willing to give up something that's yours, whether it's a career opportunity or a little bit of the money or profit or something, to do the first two. And that becomes a virtuous cycle. So most people think you go find your passion and then you try to get good at it and then you make lots of money and then you prioritize the money all the time. And that is a sequence that's mixed up. You figure out what you're able to do and you figure out who is needing it. Then you worry about being so valuable in that situation that they pay you more. Your price goes up. You do it, then you do it more efficiently and your profits go up. And that's all a lot of detail. Obviously, we could talk for a whole year about those two topics, about making more revenue and saving more money. But that's what you do next. And then you will feel the passion. When you're helping people that are thrilled and you can see the change that you make in their job and their conversations when they go home, their teams, their customers, their own client bases, when you see that, and then you figure out how the math is going to work and you're both going to make more money, passion shows up easily. Passion shows up. And so passion is not first, it's third. So that's kind of the biggest aha I've had behind the branding that I say, I don't want it. I don't want you to go make money. I don't want you to find a job and be miserable. 9 out of 10 people are miserable all their light hours of the week. 9 out of 10 people are miserable. They're the daylight, during the daylight, 9 out of 10 people are miserable. Why? Because they're chasing surviving first and getting rich first. When you get your priorities straight, you win awards, you have better business, and you have passion show up. And you're the one. You're the 1 out of 10 when you do the priorities right, because no one else believes that it can be real in that order. So that's a long answer, but that's how I feel.
Yeah, amazing. You first have to focus on creating the exceptional outcome. For the clients, and then
if you're not valuable, you're not going to get rich. You're not going to give and people do get rich short term, but those people are not happy statistically. People study this all the time. You chase the money, you're not at the top of happiness. It's been tried so many millions of times, and it's been studied literally hundreds of times by all sorts of great experts and real experienced practitioners. Chasing money first gets you rich or gets you some money to eat, but it doesn't last throughout your lifetime. It doesn't. It's second place, and then it matters. It matters in second place.
Thank you so much for sharing. So having worked closely with CEO and studying elite past performance, what have you learned about the emotional cost of higher achievements?
Good question. There's also, let me come about this backwards, because the easy answer is they're chasing the money and not the meaning. A short way to put what I believe in, my priorities. First is meaning, and that's meaning, as I said in just a minute ago. For the ideal client. I'm not creating meaning for me. I'm doing something meaningful for someone else. So that's meaning. Then money, then momentum, which is a synonym for passion. So what I've learned is these CEOs that really are, they're CEOs that leave their family for 10 years and they see them at 11 o'clock at night. They basically have a house to sleep in. They are gone by 7 a.m. Really, there's a lot of CEOs that do that. There's a lot of CEOs that do that. There's a lot of salespeople that do that too. And they get divorced and they have no relationships with their children because they missed everything they've ever been involved with. And numbers in your bank account aren't worth that subjectively. Forget the data. Like, I think anyone with a rational brain would know that. So there are some that do that, but I'll tell you that there are some other traps. There's really 4 things that even CEOs struggle with in work life before we finish. And this goes for people that are in their own business and have quit their company and they're entrepreneurs, and it goes for the CEO. It goes for I tested all 3 groups: the leaders, the CEOs, and the early in their career people that are entrepreneurs and employees. And there's really, you can cover all the problems those 9 out of 10 face in 4 ideas. First of all, they don't think that they have enough time to do the work they're given. They're overwhelmed. So overwhelm is number 1. The second one is they feel like they're struggling financially, or they are struggling financially. Number 2 again. So that's the second problem people feel every day as they wake up and think about working. The third thing they feel is they thought this was exciting. They thought it was their passion. They did that first, and now it just doesn't fit them anymore. It just doesn't fit them anymore. And so now the fourth one is, or the third one is a misfit. You just don't fit anymore. And then the fourth one is that they just don't find the meaning because they're trying to get the meaning and stick it inside their own soul and their own brain and their own heart.
Yeah.
And they should feel meaning. And that meaning only comes indirectly by giving the meaning to someone else.
Yeah.
So that's what I see in CEOs is they suffer from, a lot of them suffer from one of those 4 mispriorities or feelings that are results of other things. Podcasts, like a lot of people, I've met a lot of podcasters like you. Everyone has a different reason for doing it.
Yeah.
Why do I spend $7,000 to $10,000 a year for other people? Because I'll bet you're willing to admit it too. Like, we're not making a profit yet, right? And so we invest. Why am I doing it? That's why I'm doing it. I have Bold Encounters, and I put up boldencounters.com because I'm spending an enormous amount of money to help thousands of other people have better days of the week when it's light outside, because it's half your life. Get your priorities straight. Let me help you with my great guests, and come find me on any major platform in boldencounters.tv.
Yeah.
That's
Amazing.
where I'd love you to go.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Yeah. Overwhelmed, they're struggling financially, fit. And they don't feel the sense of meaning. You can't feel the sense of meaning until you give it out. Yeah. This has really been amazing and a whole lot of lessons to really unpack here. Has your definition of success changed over time? And if so, how?
Yeah. It's just what we've been talking about. Success means that a young human being goes through this phase when they're developing where they build their ego, which that can be a word that is misunderstood in English. What it really meant originally, psychologically, is that you're building a self-awareness that you're valuable to the world, and the world's awareness that you're valuable to the world. That's what I mean by ego. So you go through this phase where you're trying to become valuable and prove it to yourself, and become valuable to prove it to other people. And that's an early phase of your life, but it doesn't last your whole life in a healthy life. What happens next is that you actually contribute and use the value to help other people and be part of this connection we call humanity in a constructive, positive way. So the definition of success is getting those 3 priorities right we talked about. If you're someone that's devoted and obsessed with making other people better, either commercially or for free, I think you're successful. I don't even care how much money you make. That's just my personal feeling. And then if you can do that and make money, then I think you're smart, which makes me esteem you. And then if you have passion, then I admire you, because who doesn't want to be passionate?
Yeah.
Those 3 build success in my mind. That's my answer.
Thank you so much, Mark. Thank you for bringing your experience. And it's a pleasure having you on the show.
Thank you so much for having me.